Hello and welcome back to the Geek Cabal channel. This is Cabal Whisperings, episode 5. And today's date is August 30th, 2023.
Yep. So, this is Bob. That was Jim doing the intro there. Got a few little notes here at the beginning, like we've done in some of the other episodes. Well, actually, probably most of the episodes at this point. Although there's only been 4 others, so I don't know, maybe.
We have to get the channel notes out there. We have to get the agenda. The PTO meeting has to start.
Yeah. So, one quick note on when this is going to pop up when you're actually listening to this versus when we recorded and everything. You'll note it was Wednesday, meaning the new episode of Ahsoka for this time period came out yesterday. I have watched it. Jim and his son Owen have not. So we're going to wait till the two of them have watched it, which should be from our perspective tomorrow, Thursday, and hopefully record it after that. That will probably be going up as soon as humanly possible. So it will probably be up before you're hearing this one. Just throwing that out there. So I'm telling you this, so don't expect a lot of comments about episode 3 of Ahsoka.
Yeah, we'll try to do maybe a dedicated video on that so that we can get all of the reactions. I just don't have my kids today, so
and I don't want to spoil Jim on what did or did not happen, so I'm not going to comment on it other than one incredibly minor comment in that this episode is really short. I'll leave it there for now. Watch the review.
Was Ahsoka in it actually?
Yeah. Yeah, she's in it. Hera's in it. Sabine.
Well, you never know. It could have been an episode of The Mandalorian.
No. I'm beginning to think that the one episode of The Mandalorian where Ahsoka captured that woman was actually an episode of Ahsoka. Is the way this is going to pan out. I'm thinking.
Well, that's fine.
Because
I mean,
if one of these episodes turns into a Mandalorian episode, then we really aren't going to get to Thrawn. I guess I'll say something else here. This plot is taking fucking forever to go anywhere.
Which is one of the common complaints that I'm hearing. On top of that, you had to watch Rebels to understand what's going on.
I just might have to bleep that out.
What?
What I just said.
Why?
I don't know if they completely changed their policy about the whole first few minutes of the video thing. So I might have to bleep that one. But not later ones.
Which one? Oh, you said a bad word?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's only the first 10, 15 seconds, I thought.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So anyway, like I said, watch the review. I don't want to spoil Jim. That is all I'm going to say on the episode.
Yeah, and I apologize for the sneezing on the camera there. I don't know if I got into something when I was outside hiking earlier today, but got an eye irritation, and now it's a little bit of a cold going on, so wonderful times. Yeah. I love pollen.
I thank God every day I don't have allergies, which is amazing because my mom was allergic to all kinds of things. Didn't get one of them. She can't handle seafood. She's lactose intolerant. Can't handle caffeine. Can't handle much cinnamon or garlic. I can eat all those things, no problem. So I should probably do that. But anyway, for those of you listening, in case that somebody didn't transmit, I knocked on the wooden table we're sitting at. Let's see. Any other notes? Let's see. Just put up Brad's GenCon thoughts. Lengthy but insightful. Then probably more on point than our thoughts were, I should say. Then I am trying to upload the GenCon walkthrough video, but YouTube apparently doesn't like it. I let it try to process for 2 days straight and nothing, and then finally it just gave up and said it's aborting the mission. So I'm gonna either have to try to reload it and cross my fingers, because 2 other videos have uploaded and processed in the meantime. So it's not just like my interaction with YouTube. It could be the length of the video, because it's 3 hours long.
But I watch plenty of videos that are 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, I'm just saying there might be some weird interaction between that and trying to process the video. And like I said, I'm gonna give it another shot. If that doesn't work, I'm gonna try breaking the video in half and try uploading the 2 halves. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully Jim didn't walk around for nothing.
No, we'll get it somewhere.
And yeah, if nothing else, I'll upload it to another system. I don't know what else we got out there. BitChute, Rumble, something else. I don't know. Then I'll probably get banned from YouTube because of the political leanings of the people on those sites. But who knows? Let's see. Any other comments or thoughts about what we got going on?
Yeah, there's a little bit of traction on our Aquarius video, and out of all the videos that I've put out there, it's the first one that I've had that's gotten a downvote, and like I'm all about the downvotes. Like if you don't like the video, definitely let us know. But I'm also kind of like, what was in that video that would have garnered a negative reaction? Minus I didn't show actually hooking it up and turning it on, but that will be remedied at some point in time.
Stay tuned to later in this very podcast/video for comments on that. Let's see. What else did we put up recently? We had that.
The Game Boy Micro.
Game Boy Micro, which is also kind of getting a little bit of traction.
Yeah, I seem to be finding a lot of things that people just are like, I didn't know that existed, kind of thing. And again, I mean, these weren't. I mean, they were out there, but they weren't, again, like the mainline consoles and stuff like that. But that's what I like. I mean, that's, again, why I own a Philips CDI. It's not because it's good.
The Warcraft video is also coming. It's done, like we said in the last podcast. Yeah, I believe we mentioned in the last one. Or if we didn't, there's an unboxing for this. It's just a matter of like, where filming and editing has kind of overlapped. Like these episodes are being filmed a little bit closer together, so I haven't had the chance to edit this one and get it up yet. But it is coming. It will probably be up before what you're listening to right now is up, but if not, it'll be right after.
That's a nice one because it's a very insightful. Look, we unbox it, but then we kind of talk about our memories of actually playing Warcraft 2 and, just gaming in the 90s.
Which, like several of our other videos, it eventually spirals into Star Wars.
Yes. Because, well, if I wasn't playing Star Wars, I was playing Warcraft for the most part, or Command & Conquer.
Yeah. So, I believe those are most of the notes. The only other thing is, I just want to throw out there, like I said originally, I'm hoping to keep this podcast weekly. Still trying to sort out if I'm going to upload on a specific day, but our filming schedule kind of goes all over the place, so it makes it difficult.
Yeah, it kind of does me, but
depends
on if I have my kids, don't have my kids. I try not to record when I have my kids here, just because it takes away from what they're doing. But at the same time, I do like to have Owen on here. Yeah, try to get him used to the whole talking, in front of a camera, beside a camera, next to a camera.
In the same room as a camera.
In the same room as a camera. Well, we're always being watched, so there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just comes down to practice. So, but on that front, I just want to throw out there that our number of videos that we have filmed versus what's out there fluctuates. So we simultaneously have too many and too few. A lot of times I have more than enough to put out one a day, but not quite enough to put out two a day. And I don't know where the balance is. What ends up happening is I hit a point where I've got too many in the backlog, and what we're doing now, I'm talking about things, I'll talk about something in one video, but it's like 2 weeks before it gets out. And so, because of that, going forward, anything that's like remotely time sensitive, we might be starting to put out more than one video a day on some things. Because we've still got a couple GenCon videos. I mean, we've got, that we have filmed. We still have the Warcraft video, like I mentioned, and a few others. I've still got a BattleTech video that I've already filmed. So, there might be some days that 2 videos go out. I will try to space them apart. The other solution would be putting them out on the weekends, which I don't normally do at the moment because I'm busy on the weekends. And because, as near as I can tell, our traffic drops off on the weekends. So the people who are watching our videos, I don't think it's a chicken and egg thing, but our people that are watching our videos don't seem to watch them as much on the weekends according to the analytics.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they watch us to go to sleep.
Or they're watching us at work or something. I don't know. But I'll look through those again to make sure like nothing's changed on that front. If it has, then I'll start putting them in on the weekends too, if I can. But I just want to tell you guys, like, it's not some weird thing where we're just like, oh, 3 weeks in, like, oh, we're done enough videos for now. Let's take a week off or something like that. That's a minor fluctuation around GenCon, and we're back to basically a video a day or almost every day. We hit it in snags, like what I hit with the GenCon walkthrough video, where it's in YouTube and it's processing, and I'm expecting it to be done like the next morning so I can put it up, and it's not. And I don't have another video edited ready to go. Or if I do, I have to tell it to start loading into YouTube, but it's not until I get back from what I do all day and then put it up. So I hit these snags, and after a certain point, it's better just to release it the next day. Or if I'm just really frustrated, if it's at midnight, then it's coming out at midnight. I know we're supposed to try to be consistent for everybody. I'm just saying that sometimes it doesn't work.
Well, we're also working people here, so it's not like we can always be consistent on stuff. Let's see. I don't know what I must have gotten into, because I'm having a decent allergic reaction. Like my eye is.
Yes, it is. It's not looking good, Jim.
and it's fine. Like if I go out and hike or whatever like that, there's always something out there, some pollen, some plant that just runs havoc on me here, and that's what it's doing. So for you that are watching, if you see that my eye, this one here, is starting to swell shut, just don't worry, I'm okay. It's just the my body's blessing to say, hey, you don't like pollen and flowers and plants and good old stuff like that. So,
all right. Well, hopefully Jim can make it through this one.
Well, I may have to stop and go and blow my nose here in a minute. I don't want to do that on camera.
Understandable.
Unless I make funny cartoon horn noises over top of it.
Maybe.
You could edit that.
I probably could. All right, so that's enough on the notes.
In the nose.
On the movie topics. Okay, so I watched The Flash now that it's on HBO Max. I was actually watching it just on HBO and missed a chunk and went back and watched through it on HBO Max to see the whole thing. Overall, I thought the movie was entertaining. I really don't know if it's like people just don't like DC. Possible. If it's superhero fatigue, which I didn't think was ever actually going to set in, but I suppose it was inevitable. Or if people just don't like Ezra Miller, and I don't think it's that one, because I think most people just don't know who he is or what he's accused of doing. But it just didn't seem to do great at the box office. And having watched it, I think it should have probably done better than it did. About to be some spoilers, so here goes. The movie does somewhat resemble the Flashpoint Paradox storyline, where he goes back to try to stop his mother from getting killed. And in doing so, he winds up in an alternate timeline. And as near as I can tell, this alternate timeline is the Tim Burton Batman movie timeline, because Michael Keaton is Batman. And, or he was Batman. Once Barry tracks him down, he's like, no, I'm not Batman anymore. Gotham's become one of the most peaceful cities on Earth. So, like, he succeeded.
Is it ran by robots?
No, it's not the Kingdom Come timeline. But he is older, and Barry, they have that conversation about that, and because Barry is trying to figure out, well, if I went back in time and changed this one thing, how did that change when you were born? Because that would have been before I came back. And Bruce tries to explain it to him using 2 pieces of spaghetti, pre-cooked. So he's like, here's your timeline. It's one straight line. You came back to this point, and now he like rotates one of the pieces like about 45 degrees. He's like, now you're over here. He's like, you didn't change your time necessarily. You're in a different timeline. You just went to like an inflection point and took a different turn. And so by doing that, you're in a different timeline entirely. So of course the past is also different.
Is that the proper use of inflection point?
Maybe.
I don't
think
know.
so.
Well, I hear people say that Joe Biden refers to inflection points all the time, but it's in the wrong capacity.
Oh,
I don't
who knows?
Just a funny tidbit.
I don't listen to many of the speeches any of the politicians give. Then they probably use the terminology wrong all the time on all kinds of things.
Well,
similar to the newspaper. You ever heard of the Gell-Mann amnesia effect? Now the name was coined by Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park and several other books that got turned into movies. Essentially, it's you're reading the newspaper, you come across a story that has to do with something you actually know about, and you see just how horribly wrong it is on everything. But magically, whenever you turn that page, you just assume that that next story is right. Why? You were just presented with proof that the media has no idea what the hell they're talking about. But you turn that page and, oh, well, this story has to be right, I'm sure. That was just a fluke. No. No, they're all wrong on all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, it's like around here, the one that always would get me is you would ask somebody a question, and their response would be, "I have no idea." But I couldn't tell you how many people in this area would use the word ideal. They would say, "I have no ideal," and you're like,
no, I don't know if I've ever heard that one.
"Oh, yes."
The thing that always drives me crazy is people that pronounce the word nuclear, including at least one former president. But then again, he acted like an idiot.
No,
I don't think he actually was an idiot. I think it was an act, but
no.
Junior.
I know, but I'm trying to think. I say nuclear.
Yeah, no, you say it right. I'm sure you do. In our area, the big thing is
adding R's into words.
Yeah, like instead of Washington, it's Washington.
Hell, even my mom's bad for sometimes she'll say instead of saying oil, she'll say oral.
Yeah.
Oral and the sorrel. The horses and the carn.
Yeah. But now I've totally lost my train of thought, Jim. So the Flash, that's where it was. Okay, so
we have thoughts on here.
Yeah. So then he's like, so you go back enough times though, and you start really screwing with things. Then he has all the cooked spaghetti and dumps it into a bowl. He's like, this is what you wind up with, the multiverse. So that's Bruce Wayne's theory on the multiverse there, which you get to see him play at the very end of the movie, where you get to see some of the alternate realities. You see like the George Reeves Superman universe. He was the black and white Superman, for those of you that don't know. Really kind of odd, ironic, I don't know what you want to call this, but there's a movie largely dealing with his death where he's played by Ben Affleck.
Yeah, he's got like one of those ones where there were people in the house.
Yeah.
And because they didn't know if he had shot himself or someone shot him or.
Yeah, like I don't know all the details because I only know it from the movie, but from the way the movie presents it, it looked like it was plausible that it could have been someone else or it could have been him, but no one knows.
Yeah, because he just like came home and is like, "Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and go upstairs," and
yeah, the next thing you know,
bang.
But so yeah, you see that one. You see the Adam West Batman universe. You get to see the Christopher Reeve and I can't think of the name of the lady who played Supergirl in the Supergirl movie, but she's there too. And then you also see the Nicolas Cage Superman universe where he's fighting the giant spider. And yeah, so you see all these and the effects of the constant time travel back, because the reason they have to go find Bruce is because General Zod shows up, just like in Man of Steel, and is they think he's trying to find Clark. Then they go to where supposedly Clark is, and it's actually Kara Zor-El, and that's actually who Zod's after, because he killed Clark already. And Kara's the one that has the genetic codex built into her. And so she gets killed in the battle, and so does Bruce. And so the Flash, the Barry from that timeline, who also has powers, and I'm not going to go into all that, is like, well, why don't we just go back in time and save them? We can do that, right? And other Barry's trying to warn him, no, we can't just keep doing this. And They just end up in like a loop, and finally the Barry from the main timeline just like stays in like the time bubble. Lets the other one just keep trying and trying and trying till he'll hopefully realize he can't stop it because it's a fixed point in time. They can't do anything for it. And then he like slowly turns into this monster thing that like kicked Barry out of the time loop into that dimension. And then the thing's like, how's that for a paradox for you? Like, I had to kick you out so you could create me. Because it's the other Barry going back again and again and again and again. But now he's like an old man. And then like that Barry stabs another Barry, and then they both die, and it gets convoluted. But he winds up back in the timeline, saves his dad at court, and turns Batman into George Clooney somehow. And he tries to tell Aquaman all this at the end of the movie, but Aquaman's too drunk to understand it, so...
Well, you know what they could do with all of this is
Aquaman was still played by Jason Momoa, to be clear. Oh, one little minor detail that I thought was nice. In the George Reeves Superman, you see he's like looking like the way the effects work is like when they're time traveling, it kind of looks like an amphitheater, only it's completely circular all the way around, not just the half. And you see like most recent events are around them, the different possibilities, and it starts going back to later and later events as it climbs upwards and more possibilities. So the George Reeves Superman looks down into that, and the Flash there is Jay Garrick. So I thought that was a nice touch. He's the old-timey Flash, for those of you that don't know.
And with the tin hat that should not be able to stay on his head while he runs it.
Yeah.
You know, there is a possibility to be able to fix everything and reset things, reset actors, and do all of that. And it's two things. They could go, not saying they should, but they could go the New 52 route, because Flashpoint is the kickoff for the New 52.
Yeah.
Or they could make, since they were talking about all of the multiverse stuff, they could do Infinite Crisis and again reset the timeline, kill Supergirl, have the Flash run until he turns into a skeleton.
Oh, you mean Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Oh yeah, sorry, yes. Well, it's one of those.
Yeah, DC's not great at naming those things.
Yes, because you had Crisis on Infinite Earth, and then because there was Infinite Crisis, then there was Final Crisis.
Yeah, because Crisis on Infinite Earths was meant to collapse the multiverse down into a single Earth.
Yeah.
And they kind of reset everyone there. That's where like Lex became a 1980s businessman, and everyone's origins as we know them today predominantly emerged from that. And as Jim said, Supergirl got killed. She didn't actually get killed. She's Power Girl. Which you find out in Infinite Crisis, which brings back the multiverse and spins out of the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths from like 30 years beforehand at that point in time, as well as the Identity Crisis, which that was an interesting read. I'll have to talk about that sometime.
But I'm saying it would be a good kicking off point to say, okay, we're going to reset everything, and you can make, because they're talking about making just a DCU instead of a DCEU.
Yeah, the two companies, one of the biggest problems both companies have is they don't want to look like they're copying the other one, but the problem is their comics have done that for decades. They have to. Like, oh, let's not call it the DCU because they'll confuse it with the MCU. No one will. Trust me, nobody will. Okay? Or no large number of people will.
I mean, you're going to have people that are like, oh, why isn't Superman in this Marvel movie? And you're like, well, yeah, because people aren't going to understand.
Like, okay, a number of people will do that. I've talked to some of these people. But by and large, it's not because they're stupid. It's just because there's so many of these movies. But for the most part, no one's going to be worried about that. Like the Aquaman example. One of the reasons I believe that they altered Namor as much as they did, assuming it's not the rights issue I've heard about, is because they didn't want to claim that they were copying Namor, or copying Aquaman. The irony being, that's one of the few characters that DC copied from Marvel. Because Aquaman predates World War II. He's one of the two oldest characters Marvel owns, the other being Captain America. And so the irony that they don't want to appear like they're copying Aquaman when Aquaman copied everything from Namor it's very ironic.
Don't you think?
But very frustrating. Yeah. Okay, Atlantis. That's not Atlantis, to be clear. I think you think I mispronounced it. I meant Alanis Morissette. Used to date what's his name from Full House.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she also
They made a whole video about how much of an asshole it was.
there was also a point in
Dave Coulier, that's who that
time,
was.
that she dated. I would say dated Deadpool, but
Ryan Reynolds
yes, yep,
or Deadpool. I mean,
yeah,
he basically is Deadpool at this point, minus the superpowers.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
So kind of like Deadpool in Wolverine Origins.
God, I've been watching. I don't know.
Before the end of the movie, to be crystal clear. God, what the hell happened at the end of that movie?
I don't even think even during the movie he was really. I mean, besides being a loudmouth, he was just like a loudmouth character. He wasn't. But you know what though? I mean, I guess that would be more akin to his original book debut. Even though I don't think he was.
Yeah, because even though Rob Liefeld created him, Rob Liefeld didn't create the character that we know today. That was a later writer. He was actually just basically a Deathstroke knockoff originally. Then other people came in and changed him.
So was he Pouch Man at some point? Did he have all the pouches if Liefeld drove?
Oh, hell yes, he used to have all the pouches. You should see the X-Force issues from those time periods. Cable had pouches on pouches and guns bigger than a human being in both hands, like one in each hand, with like 8 barrels and bullet chains that are stupid because they're space future guns that shoot lasers and, kind of like in the intro to the G.I. Joe animated movie, where the series very clearly established that they were lasers, and it wasn't just like a kid's show so they couldn't use real bullets. Like, they're very clear, they're lasers. So the Joes show up and they start shooting their laser guns at like machine gun mode, and you see bullet casings coming out of the guns. So unless they're like popping out like AA batteries with each shot or something, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, I mean, in Star Wars, they're considered blaster bolts. That's why
Yeah.
they have ammo. But, anyways,
So
Flash.
yeah. So like I said, I thought it was decent. The end, the end gets emotional because Barry has to stop himself from saving his mom, and so he basically has to do something that he knows is going to set in motion her death. So that's I can't even imagine what that would have to be like. So
Now, the question is, did he still have a lifetime full of memories with her?
no, because whenever he showed up in the other timeline, there was another Barry there. Because he didn't show up whenever he left. He actually showed up like years earlier before he got his powers. So the other Barry didn't have his powers initially. He actually showed up like the day he was supposed to get his powers. So he had to like break into the crime lab and everything because this Barry didn't work there because his mom never got killed. So then whenever he got his powers, regular Barry lost his powers because like the lightning bolt went through him into the other Barry. So towards the end, he's got to get his powers back, which is basically, all right, Batman, how about you strap me to this chair with a bunch of industrial chemicals around me, let a lightning bolt hit me? And Batman's like, for the record, I think this is insane, but sure.
Yeah, I see why they went some routes with that, because obviously the Flashpoint paradox, or Flashpoint, wouldn't the what they did in the animated movie in the comic book or whatever wouldn't have translated it exactly, because one, you would have had Thomas Wayne versus.
Yeah, which I hear like a couple of years ago, I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan said he was disappointed that didn't go that route because it was part of the reason why he wanted to play Thomas Wayne in Batman versus Superman. Because of that. Also, kind of ironic, the woman that plays Martha is also Jeffrey Dean Morgan's on The Walking Dead as Negan, who is by and large a villainous character, definitely a complete murdering. I'm not gonna call him a psychopath, but he's definitely a murderer. And one of the people that has a real big problem with him is Maggie, because he killed her husband right in front of her by bashing him in the head with a baseball bat until his eye flew out of his skull, and then joked about it right in front of her. Well, Maggie plays Martha Wayne. So when I saw it, I was like, damn, what are the odds of that?
But no, that and the end of the Flashpoint comic book and the animated movie. It was tearful enough that he had to stop himself from saving his
And
mom.
then he gives the note to Bruce from Thomas.
Yeah, he gives a note. It's awesome that he was able to carry that through the.
Well, they kind of replace that since we've got the older Bruce. He has a conversation with him before he tries to get his powers back, and where Bruce is like, I've spent my life trying to make up, for them dying and everything, and he's like, but you actually were able to bring her back, huh? He's like, I understand what you've done, like I get it. I'll help you, Because before he goes back, he's talking to Ben Affleck, Batman. I wish I could have got Val Kilmer in here somehow, complete the scene. But he's talking to him, and he even says, he's like, Bruce, I could go back and save your parents. And you see Ben Affleck, he's just kind of like, no, I don't do that. He's like, the things that have happened to us have made us who we are. He's like, you can't let your tragedy define you. And Barry's like, but you did. That's why you're Batman. He's like, yeah, but it's also why I'm completely alone. He's like, Barry, you don't have anything to regret. Like, just, yeah, you might save her or you might destroy everything. Like, just don't do it. And because he gave him the whole, like you might even touch the wrong blade of grass or something. And so a few minutes later, he's like, well, wait, I can do it without interacting. And he thinks through a strategy where he's not going to interact with anybody and tries to employ it. And then the other Barry from the other timeline's future hits him in the Speed Force and knocks him into that timeline. And like his plan might have worked, all things considered, if it weren't for the other Barry. But
I like in the comic when he goes back and Thomas Wayne, and he's trying to explain it to Thomas Wayne as Thomas Wayne's breaking his hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, what kind of name is Eobard?
Oh, he does have the ring with the outfit too, by the way. So, because he has to explain to the other Barry, like, hey, you can't do all the things I can do because you're going to build up static electricity. I don't. Which leads to Barry like, well, what if I just like Emperor these guys? That's just like, yeah, all right. Which does work, by the way. He just has to explain that he's got to ground himself somehow. But yeah, all things considered, I thought it was a good movie. Definitely a lot of it works a lot on the nostalgia of the Tim Burton Batman movies. Like once you realize you're at that point, because Barry's trying to sit there and explain to him at one point. He's like, all right, we got to find Superman. Like, who the hell's Superman? He's like, Wonder Woman? Who's Wonder Woman? Then they get to Batman. One of them's like, I'm Batman. And you're like, so Batman's real? Yeah, he's real, but no one knows who he is. He's like, well, don't worry, I know who he is. And so, yeah, they go and, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you miss all of yeah, because Superman was in was it Cadmus?
Well, in this one, it's Kara instead of Clark, and she's being held in like a Siberian prison in a thing that's blocking her from the sun. Then, what's his name hasn't become Cyborg yet, and like there's just no sign of the other heroes, so he calls up Aquaman's dad, and he's like, so you're Arthur Curry, and you work in this lighthouse, and they got Tamura Morrison there and everything, and he's like, and your son, he's like, well, I need to talk to Arthur Curry. Like, who? Your son. He goes, look, I don't have a son. Like, you sure? It's like, you sure you're not married to an Atlantean princess? He looks over, and there's a very large woman that he's married to, and he's like, I'm pretty sure I'm not. Finally hangs up on him, thinks it's a prank call. So he never met Arthur's Muhammad, and like everything is just screwed up in this timeline. Oh, and it is almost definitely the Tim Burton Batman movie timeline, because the other Flash is asleep in the Batmobile, which looks like the one from the first movie. And he's like, hey, check this bag out. And looks what it does when it opens it. He opens it up, and it's the Joker's laugh from the very end of the movie, whenever he fell off the building. Yeah. So it's definitely that timeline.
So do they make any calls to the other Batman trilogy?
I don't think so. All the musical cues are from the Tim Burton one. He's got a bigger version of the Batjet.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine Christian Bale being on board to don Batsuit on again. I don't know. Just some reason I think he's kind of like, I'm done with it. I'm out.
Probably, but you never know. I mean, Tom Welling always said he was never a big fan of being Superman in the show because of the outfit. But he ended up doing the cameo in the Supergirl series for their version of, I think it's Crisis on Infinite Earths. He doesn't have the suit. He's given up his powers. He's human. And the other Lex, who first when he's like Lex, he's like, I'm Lex Luthor. He's like, no, you're not. It's like, I know what Lex looks like. You're not Lex. And he tries to use kryptonite on him. It's like, kryptonite. Yeah, it doesn't work. Then punches him in the face.
Yeah. He's like, I am still stronger than you.
Yeah. And then they had Erica Durance as Lois, which was a nice touch too. I thought she did a decent job on the show. I still wish they'd get all those people back together and make a movie for them, even if it's just like a HBO Max movie or something. So anyway, the other movie I watched most of the other day, Robovampire. Now this is on Tubi at the moment, so I probably should have put this under streaming, but here goes. I think this movie's from the 80s. It may or may not have been filmed on VHS tape, given the quality of what I was watching. It's definitely like a port from a VHS tape or something. And it's like TV. It's 4:3. Yeah. So there's a gang, and this movie is confusing as hell. I have no idea who's on whose side, but there's a gang who's shipping drugs that uses Chinese vampires as like security for them. And for those of you that don't know about Chinese vampires, they jump like rabbits. Like,
do they do that in the...
Oh, yes, they do. All over the damn place. They kind of look... One of them is literally has like a monkey mask on for some reason. They can shoot fire out of their hands. And by fire, I mean they probably had like a Roman candle up their sleeve, shooting it out, and then a whole bunch of smoke. I don't think they turn anybody, but they do bite people and kill them. And then there's a guy who's making them, and he just uses magic to make them. So like anytime, well, it's like he gets in this fight, like a couple guys get killed, and he just like does the spell, and boom, there's another vampire now. And so the way they're doing it with the drugs is like they put him in a coffin because he puts like a magic spell on like a piece of paper and like puts it on them to control them. And so they put them inside the coffin, and then they put all the drugs in there with them. So if anyone opens up the coffin and disturbs the spell, well, they're going to deal with a jumping vampire that's going to kill them.
So is there a RoboCop?
There is. There's a guy that gets killed, it gets turned into a robot, and it goes around just shooting people. And then the vampires ambush him, so they hold him down while another guy hits him with a bazooka, which blows him up, but then they rebuild him again. And that's the point where I had to check out, because I was tired. So I'll tell you how the last like 20 minutes goes when I get back to it. This movie somehow has a sequel, by the way. But yeah, you want to see like jumping Chinese vampires, like this is the movie for you. Horrible dubbing. Like there's no quality in this movie at all. I don't even know how they got the equipment, like the various vehicles, because they clearly had no budget for anything else.
Back in the day, I actually rented a vehicle for a movie shoot of some sort, and when they brought the vehicle back, like all of the badging had to be taped on it, so that they, because they couldn't have like the Chevy badging or any of that. So when they brought the vehicle back, we had to take all the tape off so that we could, obviously rent the vehicle back out. But
yeah,
unfortunately, I didn't watch anything. I didn't, I watched a few, just some YouTube stuff, but I usually put that on the background while I'm working, and this today was the Tandy Whiz Kids comics.
Tandy Whiz Kids comics.
Yeah, for the Tandy TRS 80 home computer, where sometimes they would have guest stars of Superman and Wonder Woman as they would talk about the advantages of using the TRS 80 color computer. Again, that was on atop the fourth wall. That was another thing there. But like, yeah, a lot of times I'll just put those on the background, just like you guys may put us on in the background while you're working and doing stuff. Background noise, whatever that may be. But when you were talking about that, it really made me think of the one of the movies I had watched. It's been a while, so I don't know how much I can recall on it, but that was Velocipaster.
I haven't watched that one yet. It's on my list.
Because you're talking about like they embrace that it's low budget, because there is definitely one scene where it says insert vehicle explosion effect in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but Chris did and told me about it. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes Part 2 has a scene 3/4 the way through where they have to take a break for product placement, apparently. So that's one of George Clooney's earliest films, possibly his first one.
Well, before product placement, I mean, like you could tell when they were doing it because it'd be like, here's my can of whatever soda pop here, and like the label has like all the labels have to be turned, and it's like they definitely will, like do a panning camera shot. They've gotten better about it, but heck, I remember even with I think it was the first Transformers movie, the first Michael Bay one,
Yeah.
that there was definitely scenes like where they showed like they were GM vehicles. I believe all of them were almost GM vehicles exclusively because you
I
had
think so, yeah.
the GMC truck thing that I think Ironhide was. You had the Pontiac Solstice, and like when the Allspark was like touching different things, like they touched like one of the vehicles. It was a Cadillac Escalade, and the steering wheel comes alive. And then the other one was a Mountain Dew machine that started launching soda cans at people.
Yeah, wasn't it also one of the people had an SD card or something at some point. It very unnaturally zoomed in so you could see what brand it was and everything.
But I think they've gotten a lot more subtle with the product placements in movies. Like that one was one of the ones of more recent history that I remembered as just like this is just a giant walking billboard for these different items.
Yeah. Well, I know Wayne's World, the first one, makes fun of that. Whenever they're there on the set, at one point, they're sitting there and like Wayne is talking to Rob Lowe's character, and he says something, and then pulls up a bag of Doritos and reaches in and eats one, and like smiles real big, and then he says something to Garth, and I think he's eating like a Pizza Hut pizza, and it cuts
Yeah.
back to Wayne. He's like, it's your choice, Wayne. He's holding a Pepsi. He's like, yes, and it's the choice of a new generation. Starts drinking it, and then it cuts back over to Garth, and he's wearing everything he's wearing is Reebok attire. And he's like, some people are just total sellouts, and that's just sad, man. Paraphrasing, he says something else right
Yeah.
there, but yeah, that's most of the new movies I watched. I don't think I watched anything else. Um, so
Well, like I said, we got some other stuff to talk about here.
Yeah.
You've got a book you need to talk about.
yes, so probably after this comes out, we'll have a book review for BattleTech: Hour of the Wolf, since I finally finished the book. For those of you who listened last time, yeah, there was definitely some skimming in those last 100 pages. I just tried to keep track of who all was living and who was dying. So, but yeah, good book. Definitely, definitely an ending to things. So, look for the review on that if you're interested. And I've started the next Dragonlance book, which is Dragons of Deceit, I believe is the name of it. And I will confirm that as I keep talking about the book itself. I'm blowing through it a lot faster. I'm already like 120 pages into that one. So, no, sorry, it's not Dragons of Deceit. That was the last one. It's Dragons of Fate. Like I said, I'm already like 120 pages into that one. Now, part of that's the fact that it's a larger book and larger print, so there's less on the page, because Hour of the Wolf was very dense, like physically. It's smaller print, a lot more pages. But also, I think I was hitting BattleTech fatigue, because that was like the, I don't know, 9th or 10th BattleTech book in a row that I had read without reading anything else. So it's nice to break away from that for a moment. I do have some more BattleTech books ordered, so
Well,
we'll get back into that soon.
I say with all the BattleTech talk, I said it'd be nice if I'd like to hear Chad talk about some Warhammer because I have no clue. I've seen videos of Warhammer stuff, but
Yeah, Warhammer 40K specifically, you mean, right?
yes. See, I don't know what the hell it is.
Well, I say that because there is just a regular Warhammer. It's the fantasy version of the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the game Warcraft is modeled after, whereas Warhammer 40K is the game StarCraft is modeled after, supposedly. So yeah, so I'm into that. It's good so far. It was, the plot's moving along. It sucks that it's going to be a year before the next book, because I know I'm going to blow right through this one in the next few days, probably. So look for a review for that in the near future, too. And I don't know, I might try to read something else between that and the next BattleTech book. I do have some other books I haven't read yet. So might actually tackle one that actually tackles an actual topic and not just fantasy and sci-fi. Never know. Or I might read my tremendous backlog of X-Men comics. It's about a year deep now, so we'll see. But that's probably it for books for the moment. So gaming. Jim has a little bit to talk about here. Well, sorry, Jim, I shouldn't say that. I have one little thing I need to mention. The BattleTech Kickstarter Mercenaries Kickstarter Pledge Manager is going to be open until, I believe it's September 15th. So you do still have like a couple weeks to finalize your pledges. I don't know if anyone out there pledged. Let me know what you did. Maybe I'll show my final pledge in a computer video or something. We'll see. Haven't decided yet. Still trying to figure out what I'm going to go for. So, Jim, you have some news.
Okay, so, well, with the kind of, I'd say, taken off of the Aquarius video that I did, the unboxing on that, I'd say so far the one comment we had on there was mentioning, actually showing some, usage of it. So, kind of went ahead and bought a game for it. For you, those that are able to see the screen here, where the game that I bought was Night Stalker for the Aquarius. And what I figure we'll do with this is that we'll do an unboxing / some sort of, just a playing of it. It may be very primitive because right now we don't have all the recording equipment to do this. And plus, with this one being a little bit older, I don't know even if the equipment we would have, how it would set up with it. So it may just be
put your camera at the screen.
Put the camera at the screen.
Hope
make
for
sure
the
it
best.
hope for the best. But no, we'll do an unboxing of this and then actually kind of a playthrough of that and actually kind of looking at the Aquarius a little bit.
Through all 4 levels?
Yes. That I'm not going to go into it too much because I want to go through the unboxing, but the one thing that it mentioned on here is that it's for 1 player for 4 game levels, and it's got the exclamation point. Like, that's a huge selling feature that's got 4 levels, I guess. Well, I think I
was going to say, mind you, this is a post-Super Mario game.
I believe the original Donkey Kong only has 3 levels. I think it's got the construction level. It's got the one with there's one with the lifts, and then there's the one where you have to run over the platforms to get them to disappear. It may have 4 levels, but it's only like 3 or 4, and it's just this recycling through them.
Yeah.
So I've got that. I've got one. Depending on especially if the weather getting a little bit cooler, I may work on another project that I've been talking about a lot, and that is my restoration of my Commodore 64. And I thought about doing 2 different videos with that. One of the restoration of the computer, but the other one is building the. So my Commodore 64 is yellowed, and there is a process of actually bleaching it back to its original color called Retrobrite. And I have all of the stuff to build a Retrobrite container because what you do is you fill like a container full of hydrogen peroxide and you put the plastics down into it and then you bombard it with ultraviolet light and it actually bleaches it. I don't know why the hydrogen peroxide does it, but I've got that whole setup and I've thought about maybe even doing a video of me building the contraption so that if people want to see how a amateur builds a retrobriting tool, we've got that. So besides the Aquarius, I know this isn't really gaming related. We did the video of the 2 Enterprises, the 1701 and the 1701A building block sets. I did just get another set from Mock Pixels, and this one is of the D7 Battle Cruiser and a Klingon Bird of Prey. So now my 2 1701s will actually have some competition up there on the shelf to duke it out.
There you go.
The question is that there's no Klingons with it. I don't know if these would have the ridges or not.
The other question is, does Mock Pixel sell a set of the X-Wing and the Reliant?
Yes, that would be great, because, again, if you haven't watched the Aquarius, the review, the box art on that is great, because one of the things on the box art is for the video games, shows what it clearly looks like an X-Wing engaged with what is obviously the USS Reliant. So, and I'm sure they had no permission at all to use either one of those. And they probably hand drew it in just a way that it made it different enough to...
Who made the Aquarius?
Mattel.
They might have on the Reliant, because believe Mattel. No, it's Playmates. Sorry, makes the current figures. I thought it was Mattel. I know they didn't on the X-wing. That was Kenner all the way, but
yeah, I need to get that done. The problem is with the, like I said, with the, well, finishing up on the mock pixels. If I do that, we may actually try to do a video of actually putting it together, and hopefully this time that the camera doesn't shut off partway through.
yes, and I've done a little bit of experimenting with the editor that I can like speed it up so you won't see it in real time. It'll be faster, but you'll still see it.
We may talk through it. Hell, we may do it as part of like a podcast thing too. Who knows? The other one is with the Commodore 64. That one's going to take a little bit more time. I imagine doing the restoration on that. It's going to take me probably a few hours, maybe a few days to do. A few hours of filming, probably a few days, because the retrobrite process is an overnight kind of thing.
We'll just have Owen follow you with the camera.
Well, it's more of just it's going to take a long time to film it.
Well,
so
he can stand there
for days.
Yeah,
for days he can stand there. So it's on my radar, because it's definitely something that, obviously with all the older video game stuff doesn't always look so great. So what can you do to fix that up? Another one I want to try at some point is I've got a Sega Saturn where the CD drive doesn't work. I don't know many people that have two Sega Saturns. But I've got two of them. And one of them, the drive doesn't spin up. They're two different models too. It's really weird, because when I first saw them, I was like, oh, that's the same model, but no, it's slightly different. So I want to get both of them working, so I can have both models.
Yeah.
Because I'm weird and eccentric like that. I like to have all the different models of. Wish I had a model.
So on that note, on to streaming. This is going to be very brief. The only thing of note, aside from Ahsoka, which we have another episode dedicated entirely to episodes 1 and 2, and we'll have one for episode 3. So that'll, that's where all that's going to be. In streaming news, you know how we were talking about some of the things these companies can do to make money. One of them would be to release the things on physical media that they stream.
Yeah.
Well, Loki, WandaVision, and Mandalorian season 1 and 2 are all coming to physical if people want to buy them. So,
I would say instead of putting those in retail stores, they should just have those like where you can order them off like a website, so that, because honestly, I haven't bought a movie in years, like a physical copy of a movie.
I bought one like a couple weeks ago.
If I want to watch something, I'll find a streaming service, buy it or rent it for the time and stream it.
Well, I mainly bought it for the code, but so now I own it forever on Vudu. Or until Vudu crashes, but then the whole collection goes up in digital smoke. In which case I'll just fall back on the like 600 some odd DVDs I still own. With my like 30 Blu-rays.
Now, when you said keeping the streaming brief, I was watching it was some stuff that was catching up on like where the Dragon Ball manga is at this point in time. And you mentioned Brief, and it's like there was a moment where Dr. Brief is...
Dr. Brief?
Yes.
Don't know if I've heard of Dr. Brief.
Well, Dr. Brief has a daughter named Bulma, for Bloomers. And Vegeta's married Bulma, and the first child was named Trunks. And his daughter's name's Bra. They're all named after undergarments.
Yeah, no, I get the trend.
Well, I mean, all the Saiyans are named after vegetables. Vegeta is Prince Vegetable, and then Kakarot is carrot. Yeah, and then in the new series you got Kaba, which is cabbage, and cauliflower, and kale.
And then Frieza and Cooler and...
Yeah. I mean, I give it credit. It's clever and it's funny, because it's, these people have goofy names, but yet they're, supposedly like the most powerful beings in the universe kind of thing. And it...
Yeah, well.
You know.
So, on to miscellaneous, which is where we're going to get into a couple rather interesting topics. So,
Well, good news is that my nose has stopped running and my eye has stopped swelling, so
well, that's good.
I guess the
It's just in time to talk about the Fermi Paradox. So, briefly, for those of you who don't know what the Fermi Paradox is, it is named for the physicist Enrico Fermi, who worked on the Manhattan Project, who at one point in time, basically just kind of talking almost to himself, but there was someone else present, was like, you know, if aliens exist, why haven't we found them yet, or why haven't they contacted us? Part of the idea being that we've been sending, at that point in time, we've been sending radio waves out into space for at least 30 years, so they had reached at least approximately 30 light years away. So it is kind of an interesting question that has led to a lot of people speculating a lot of things. There are several prevailing hypotheses. The big ones being either A, signals just haven't traveled far enough yet, no one has detected them. B, they're undetectable at a long distance and it just appears background radiation. C, there's no one to hear them, that it's just us. And D is that they can be detected, they are heard, and the others just don't want to talk because we're too primitive. The offshoot of that, kind of offshoot of that, is what they call the Great Filter Hypothesis. That there is some step that every civilization hits, and if they don't, and that most of them just don't make it past that, or potentially none of them have yet. And that leads to a couple troubling possibilities, because either A, we've already passed it, and we just don't know it, and other races just have not, other species, or it's still in our future, in which case we have no idea what the hell it is, and no way to prepare for it.
so it's like the Prime Directive.
Yeah, it'd be like the Prime Directive, where if they're a pre-warp society, they won't contact.
And so that for any of you that don't know, that's for Star Trek. Before the Federation could make first contact, they would have to make sure that they have achieved some sort of warp capabilities before introducing them, because otherwise they would be influencing their culture in ways that
potentially catastrophic, far-reaching ways.
So my thought on all that is,
and just real quickly, that's without getting into a bunch of the weirdo ones that we'll talk about, but they're bizarre.
So just for context, for them communicating with the Voyager probes, which are in interstellar space, the data transfer on that, even with our massive telescopes, is so minute. And minus that, I mean, we are shooting a tiny radar dish, but anything like that, what we send out as a beam becomes like just a fan, and it's whatever can hit the Voyager out there. When I was listening to that, I mean,
well, the radio signals would be spherical, but yeah.
Well, I mean, any sort of communication. I mean, we can only communicate in like bytes per second, kilobytes maybe, at that range, and that may be also because of the technology that they're using. But it just shows how weak our signals are, and things getting lost in the cosmos would be very easy to do. Unless we build something like they had in Battleship, where they were like launching it in like a fine cone or fine tube into space. But I think the biggest one is that there's got to be life, and I think the percentage of intelligent life versus non-intelligent, and when I say non-intelligent, I mean like even our primates on the planet, while they may be intelligent for animals,
they're not building cities. They're not building technology.
That is predominantly the life that you're going to find, because you got to understand, like, for the Earth's history, we're just a small footnote
Right,
And
and not just that, but like the Earth is there's a perfect storm of things that allow life to exist on Earth that just might not exist elsewhere, especially to the point of allowing life to evolve to advanced life. You know, like we've got all kinds of things going for us. The planet's in the Goldilocks zone. We have both the moon and Jupiter to basically be like a vacuum for meteors. So we don't have tons of incidents of planet killing asteroids hitting the Earth because they tend to hit the bigger outer planets first. And just all kinds of things like that. You know, there's water here. There's just several factors that sure once you factor in the fact there's trillions upon trillions of planets, yeah, it's got to repeat someplace else too, just through mathematical odds.
well, and even
But that replication could be 10 billion light years from here. You know.
and the same thing for the because I am a religious folk, but I do understand obviously not everybody is, but even then, like some people are like, well, everything was created just here on Earth. They're like, how do we know that? I mean, if God's Almighty, He can do, He could create this life on other planets. He could do whatever. I don't think that there should be any limitation to that. But getting back to it though, the besides that, um, I like the one thing that the one video you sent me.
I sent Jim a video to prompt the discussion, just to be clear.
But I did like the one thing that he mentioned, that the other thing is that is there a civilization that's at our level, past our level, gone extinct at this point? Because anything you're sending across through space, there's not any, unless they have somehow figured out faster than light communication, stuff travels slowly.
Right. That's why I said it'd be approximately 100 light years from here by now, because the first powered signal went out, I believe, in the 1920s that could actually go. So.
Yeah, and so one of the things that they mentioned is that,
and it's later than that when it's a more powerful signal. Like one of the first signals they're going to encounter is actually going to be the Olympics that were held in Germany while the Nazis were in control.
because there was one thing that they where they were talking about the communication. Now, like they said that if we went to our nearest star in our own galaxy, yes, that communication to that would take like 2.5 years.
Yeah, something like that.
They said, we'll just say it takes years to make communication. So if that's the case, and that's just one-way communication, that's
Right.
like we're sending them a signal,
Right.
and then it takes 2 years for them to get it and then send it back. Because one of the things that they're talking about before we can even colonize Mars is that we have to look at creating a chain of satellites between here and Mars to keep that signal moving so that it can move fast enough to make transmission not quite instantaneous, but probably like 90s internet.
Yeah, there's what is it?
Starlink is the one that Elon's looking at.
I think it's assuming the movie with Matt Damon is accurate. I want to say it's an 18-minute delay on the signal, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's why any rover that they send out there has to be able to take commands and do some thinking on its own, because you can't sit there and just control it from Earth.
Right.
You can program it and say, "Hey, I want you to go look at this," and then it's going to have to traverse its own path and do all that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's an obvious problem, is that maybe another race does exist and has received a signal, and their reply is on its way. Hopefully not in the form of a kinetic reply. So there is that. There is also this comes up in a series of novels I haven't read, but that those novels postulate that it's a grave mistake to try to contact the other races if they're out there, because they're probably already more advanced. They view us as a potential threat, and they will not stand for a potential threat to rise against them. And we're basically just painting a giant target on our planet by doing it. But also, another thing I watched, kind of talking about this, we're sending fewer and fewer radio signals. There's going to come a point in the very near future where we're not sending very many at all, and they're going to be very targeted and purposeful. So we're going to go radio silent. So there's going to be that band of like 100 years where our sound's out there, and then nothing. And so another race might be well past that point, and it's just gibberish, you know. It's just nothing. They don't know that it's a signal, you know, because they're so far beyond that technology. That's another possibility. But no, the one that gets me is the Great Filter one. The postulation being that nuclear weapons is probably the filter, because to advance to a certain technological level, you have to unlock that. And we know from our own experience that the temptation was there and is still there to use them. And maybe other races just didn't figure out in time that, no, don't. So that or social media.
Well, and I mean, I think if there are, aliens visiting our planet, I mean, I think right now they realize, because of our media, because of our, some of our, biases and different things like that, that we're just not in a place ready for any sort of first contact. I think there's a huge amount of population that would just be terrified, and which, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, I don't think anybody should go into it and be like, "Oh, this is great. We have visitors coming in." I mean, there should always be some skepticism on that.
Yeah,
I mean, even down to the, you look at the, like, War of the Worlds. But could you imagine if that happened in reverse, where they come to invade us, but whatever they bring, their diseases and everything.
that was something I always wondered about War of the Worlds, why it didn't work in the reverse. And apparently there is an answer somewhere in there. It's because they were so advanced they had eradicated disease among themselves.
But you think going to other planets, they would kind of have to realize.
Well, by eradicating disease, you eventually eradicate your own immune system too. I mean, I'd see your point.
Yeah.
But you can make the argument the other way. Because the reason that all of us are here is because one of our ancestors caught something and didn't die from it and then was immune to it. And repeat the process over and over again, except for that one virus that knocked humanity down to about 100,000 people. That's why, if I understood the timeline correctly, you could take two random monkeys sitting on the same branch in the jungle in Africa, and they are more genetically diverse than any two people on the planet are. As humans are like some stupidly high percentage of genetically similar to each other, because there's no diversity. We hit a point where a virus almost took us all out, and we came back from that point, so our genetic diversity is very low. So yeah, that's it's one of those things. But yeah, then there was the really out there proposal that this is all just a simulation, because the AI has actually destroyed everything at some point, and now they're trying to figure out how to reverse it. So they're trying to figure out how they were created to figure out what the problem is. And we're all just basically in the Matrix, but we don't have bodies anywhere. And they're playing through their own creation, which is why the AI thing is becoming more and more dominant in the news and everything. I personally think that whole concept is preposterous, but the hell do I know? Maybe I'm just electrons on a circuit board somewhere. Which makes all this rather bizarre. This is like Inception within the Matrix or something. I don't know.
Speaking of that, I was watching some behind the scenes. It was just a Facebook reel where they were talking about. And I've seen multiple things where, like, everything within the Matrix movies that had something to it. Like, one of them they mentioned was in the Matrix Reloaded that the agents that are still part of the system kind of have a green hue to them, while Agent Smith, when he's broken free, is wearing a black suit.
Let's check that.
But they have all sorts of like subtle things like that, and it's like you watch that movie and you see it. I mean, you see the obvious ones like the deja vu with the cat and things like um, but I guess like even in the very very first scene, you can tell that Cypher's already the one that's going to betray them. Like the first scene with Trinity. Like they're like there's a scene where he's like mentioning that I think the line's tapped or whatever, and it's on his screen that he's the one. Because it's like on one of his monitors or whatever that
Yeah.
you see the communication or the tap with the agents.
Yeah.
Because that's where he switches the screen to something else or something. I don't know. A lot of little subtle things like that, but just even the filming style. I mean, I give the Wachowskis
Yeah.
a lot of credit for the um, the little subtle details that like how it takes people analyzing. But then again, um, even, I think people have way too much time to sit here and analyze stuff. Um, because the one new trend that I've seen, and it's been with the Ahsoka series, is people taking time stills of certain people in certain positions, and I'm just like, people have way too much time. They're just sitting here. All right, screenshot that onto the internet with that, and I'm like, these people are just trying to do their job. They're just trying to be actors. They're not trying to be anything else than that. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a completely non-political statement, despite who it's about. But it's like within probably minutes of the mugshot from Trump, like I was already seeing memes where it was like put in, where there'll be a picture or something, and the meme is the picture itself, with the other people reacting to it. Like within minutes, they were popping up. Like the one from the X-Men animated series of Wolverine sitting in the bed.
yeah,
Like it just popped up somewhere online. It's like, guys, that was released like 20 minutes ago. Like, I mean, good on you for just jumping to it, but you guys have no lives. Like, come on.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
I think it's hilarious, but
it just shows that there are people out there that have a lot more time than I do, and honestly, I give them credit because
the memes are funny.
they. But it's like it's like the episode had just come out, and I already started seeing people like, oh, look at this screenshot of Hera, and I'm like,
Oh yes, the butt shot.
and I'm like, they had to like find that one shot of her sitting down with the camera behind her to get that shot, and then they did the same thing with Sabine, and they did it.
Yeah,
And I'm just like, like, people have way too much time just scouring and doing all this stuff. But anyways.
but yeah. So if you want to know more about that, by the way, there's all kinds of videos on YouTube about it. They all kind of circle the same few theories, but
And we're talking about the
oh god, the Fermi Paradox, not the Mary Elizabeth Winstead backside paradox. We'll let Ewan McGregor figure that one out. As near as I guess from the comments he's seeing her, I don't know.
You could have said the Weinstead buttocks.
Yeah. So the other thing on the science front, or as I should say, the Bill Gates acting like he's Lex Luthor front. Apparently, we've abandoned the idea of just blocking out the sun. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is in conjunction with that. That's absolute insanity. If that's ever attempted, not that I promote violence or anything, but people should do whatever they can to stop that rocket from launching, because you shouldn't let a billionaire jackass control whether the sunlight hits the Earth. Same thing if they try to seed some kind of I don't know, it's sulfur something, sulfur dioxide, I think, from volcanic eruptions. They're like, oh well, we don't know what it'll do. I'll tell you exactly what it'll do. It'll create sulfuric acid, you jackass. Like, it's stupid. Blocking out the sun. Like, it's the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard.
Now, there is because we were talking about where our civilization is at in the stellar things, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but there is
the Kardashev scale.
Yes, because there is one point where we would harvest the sun for all of its energy,
Yeah.
building something like a Dyson sphere or any of those things. And if they blocked out the sun that way, well, first of all, that's an amazing amount of material to be able to encapsulate the sun into.
Yeah.
I think the more reasonable thing would be to build like some sort of array.
Yeah, yeah. If you build an array out in space, assuming we have the technology to do it, to collect solar energy and then do something like in SimCity 2000 and beam it down to the surface somehow. Sure, because it's not going to be between the Earth and the Sun.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a little bit to the right or to the left. Which is the other problem, is the object would have to be gigantic because it can't be too far away from the Earth. Although the farther it is, the smaller it has to be. But it needs to be in a gravitationally stable point like one of the Lagrange points. But apparently, because I watched a follow-up video to this whole thing, apparently there's such a thing as solar pressure, which I'm assuming is the solar winds. They would begin moving it off course in very short order, apparently. So it's also an unworkable dumb idea. So just
But with the solar winds, we could have ourselves a Geonosian glider that we could fly through space.
yeah. Yeah, it should have taken Count Dooku like 8,000 years to reach Coruscant with that thing, but you know. Anyway, or Ben Sisko, because I think he used one at one point, didn't he, in Deep Space Nine?
Probably.
But anyway, so Bill Gates' latest diabolical scheme is it's a carbon capture idea. And like I feel like whoever came up with this idea, because it wasn't him, I feel like their head's possibly in the right place. They're just not taking it to the right logical conclusion. Okay, so trees, like all plants, absorb all kinds of carbon within their physical structure. And it's not released until they're burned or they decompose or something like that. So they are a natural carbon sink. They're actually net negative carbon. Plus they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So, by the way, that's what the solution to all this is. If you think carbon dioxide is a problem, is to plant more trees. Like it's the solution staring everyone in the face, but no one's doing it. Similar to nuclear power. So, his plan is cut down a whole bunch of trees. That's a kind of dumb idea because they were absorbing the carbon dioxide, but presumably they'll plant new ones, I guess, and then take those trees, put them into caves underground, and then seal them so the trees don't decompose. Thus, permanently, as permanent as anything man can build, locking them underground and the carbon is permanently out of the system.
You know, that's about as good of an idea as just having an organization like the Spaceballs to come in with a giant vacuum cleaner.
Yes, the Mega Maid.
And suck the atmosphere, all that stuff right out of the atmosphere.
Yeah. So, part of the problem is, again, you're cutting down the trees. Again, I'm assuming you're planting new ones. Okay. There's only so many caves. You can only do this on a certain scale. I don't really know that you could actually seal the caves properly. It just seems like a dumb idea. When instead, you could turn the trees into like charcoal, essentially. There's a term for it, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But you'll turn it into charcoal, and then you put it into the soil. To put the carbon back in the soil, this will help your plants grow, and it will keep it trapped in the soil for quite a while. And you just like rinse and repeat. So you go from let's just lock it up forever, which is kind of like the nuclear waste plan, or let's actually use it, create a product you can sell because it's not a chemical fertilizer, but it'll help your soil, as long as your soil meets certain conditions. I've done a little kind of reading on this. Apparently, if your soil is very alkaline, you don't want to do this. But the point being, you create a product you can actually sell, you're removing carbon, you're increasing plant production, which will also help decrease carbon dioxide because they use it for food. So it just seems like the far better plan is to just, if you're going to cut down the trees, you basically cook them. You're drawing out the water vapor and then the sap and things like that. And what you're left with is basically charcoal. which for a large chunk of human history, like that's how they treated metal. So we know this process works because that's what people have done for thousands of years. And apparently in the Amazon, there's just this like ultra super awesome dirt there in certain places. And this is how it came about, is burning these trees. Now there they burn them, so it's the ash. But that's how you'd have to clear the Amazon, is slash and burn. Which we don't want to do that, but we know that this dirt exists down there. So that would be the far better solution, in my opinion. And I hate to completely ridicule Bill Gates, because I saw this show on Netflix about him one time. It's got like 3 episodes. And he has actually put together a group who's designed a new model small nuclear reactor that shouldn't be able to melt down based on certain physics principles. And so if something like that were to ever like come about, like, you know, they were going to build one for testing, but their partner company was essentially the Chinese government, and eventually our government said, how about no on that one, Bill? For presumably understandable reasons. And I don't know why no one here has picked up the idea. But yeah, something like that would solve a lot of problems.
I've got a better idea. Take all that lumber, launch it into space, send it to Mars, and build Lincoln log cabins on Mars.
Well, actually, I'm of the opinion that one of the ways to help terraform Mars would be to move biomass there to start the whole process. But you've got to do several other things first.
You know, I don't remember what the heck it was about. It was a like a prehistory talking about how microorganisms, you know, started life on Earth and all this, and I can't remember if it was that they were absorbing oxygen, turning it into carbon dioxide, or absorbing carbon dioxide and turning it into oxygen. But one of the first mass extinctions was because they had done such a good job converting one to the other that they all starved to death.
Oh, I was waiting for you to say that the atmosphere caught on fire. It was oxygen.
And that they were so proficient at what they were doing that the other life forms that had started pretty much had all gone extinct. And they were the ones that were probably the more hardy ones that... But after that mass extinction, what little pockets of those organisms were left came back.
Yeah.
And...
Well, that's interesting.
And again, we talk about stuff that we watch, and obviously anything we watch, has to all be speculation, because obviously we can't say that these are guaranteed sources. They're good talking points.
Yeah, well, I mean, we find, you know, the various science topics, we find them interesting, you know.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not experts. We'll get things wrong, and we definitely want you to tell us if there's something we say that's...
Yeah, like if there's something I'm overlooking and Bill Gates is really a super genius on this front, let me know. I'm interested. Because I do think he's a smart guy, but I think most of what he's done is just buying other people's ideas and using them. So he's the modern day Thomas Edison. For those of you that know anything about Edison, you know what I mean. And if you don't, look it up. He was a crook.
Now, if you... Speaking of Bill Gates, there's a movie that... Because I loved old 90s hacker movies, like Hackers, obviously. But there was one also called... I'm going to have to think what it's called. Antitrust.
Yeah.
It had Ryan Felipe in it.
Yeah, I saw it.
And that's a...
Tim Robbins was...
The Bill Gates kind of esque character. But yeah, it was about them stealing code from people. Well, first they would try to hire the talent. If the talent said, no, you know, we want to do our own thing, then mysteriously the people would die and their codes would all of a sudden appear. All right.
So you were saying antitrust?
Yes, antitrust. Yes, or antitrust, whatever it is. I don't know. It's great about those movies though is that they're so dated. Like there is no relevance to anything nowadays. I mean, there is to a point, but like some of the technology, like all the satellite stuff. I mean, that's already there. Like, you know, now it's not like the Genesis satellite from Terminator Genesis, which was like, all of your devices will now be controlled. I'm like, well, first of all, that would never fly with anybody. Because that was like, yeah, all electronics will be controlled by this, you know, AI program. But I mean, there's none of that stuff. Like hackers, people are like, you know, they're talking about, oh, that's a 28.8 baud modem. And they're like, the hell is that? And for those that don't know, I think at least the first dial-up modem that I had that was where you actually just plugged it directly into a phone line. We're not talking about the ones where even in Hackers they show it where they like take the handset and put it on top of the.
Oh, like in war games.
Yes.
Yeah.
The actual first, set of like modems where you could directly plug into it.
Keep going.
Was I believe they were 14.4, so they were like 14 kilobytes per second. And then they doubled it to 28.8, and then they doubled it one more time to 56K.
Yeah.
And that's where they stopped. So the last of the dial-up where they ran over phone lines were 56K. And crazy enough, there's still a decent percentage of people that still are using dial-up.
Well, it's probably like, even though the home video market has shrank, the dominant format is DVD. Not Blu-ray, not 4K, DVD. And I think I could probably still find places that sell blank VHS tapes if I really looked. Even though I think the last VCR factory actually did shut down a few years ago.
So I guess it's not as much as I thought. They said as of this is one Google search said as of 2018, 0.3% of the population was still using dial-up.
Now is that the U.S.?
This is of the U.S.
Okay. Maybe it's the people that are still renting from Netflix. I've really got to look up that article about the 10 discs thing that I mentioned last time.
And as of 2022, AOL dial-up is still a thing.
Hey, MySpace is still a thing.
Well,
somehow.
MySpace has transitioned from what it was to mostly, I believe, a music kind of.
I wouldn't know. I was never on the old one, so. Hell, I didn't join Facebook till after I saw the movie, The Social Network. So, and it wasn't like, oh man, this is awesome. It was more like some of the stats at the end. I was like, oh, literally half the planet's on here. Well, I guess I should get on board now.
Heck, I had MySpace. I had a GeoCities page.
I had one for a while.
That was back in the days when getting on the internet was something special. Yeah, you'd get on and Google things here and there, but like back in the day, like the amount of misinformation people had, the rumors, and there was nothing to. There was not that immediate, hey, I'm going to pull up my phone and prove you wrong kind of thing. It's like, you'd hear like a video game rumor. So that was the big one. People would say, oh, in Tomb Raider, there's a code to make Lara Croft's clothes disappear. The longest time, people would try all sorts of things. One was, that's not involving nudity, was Luigi was in Mario 64, that you had to run around the fountain where it supposedly said L is real 64 times in a certain way and do a certain thing, and people would just spend hours doing this kind of stuff. And now a simple Google search will be like, yeah, that's a hoax. It's a bunch of malarkey.
Yeah, I came across a thing the other day, kind of talking about this particular topic. Funny enough, it just made me nostalgic for the pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter internet, where like if you wanted to know something, you'd go to a page about that topic instead of just some endless scroll that somewhere in there talks about it somewhere. Like Reddit, just the endless. There's no page two. It's just a stream. Like that wasn't a thing.
Well, and I remember like using search engines before Google. Because heck, I don't remember when I started using Google. Because I remember using like web crawler, Ask Jeeves.
I used Yahoo for the longest time.
Yeah, and Yahoo and all of that, and they were not very good, but they would give you like a page, and you have to go to that page to find that information, and then you have to hope that information is accurate at any point.
And you'd find other things by like looking at the links on that page to other pages.
And this is a topic that we kind of talked about the other day about magazines, where you had to like browse through the entire thing in a magazine. It was kind of the same thing with early web pages, because just getting the damn page to load, if it had images and stuff on it, it was a chore. Now, for anybody out there, if you want to know what early or actually mid '90s browsing looked like, I know you can do the Wayback Machine and stuff like that, but if you really just want to go to a website without having to go through any hurdles, the original Space Jam website is still up.
Wow.
And it's got, the iframes and, the animated GIFs on there, and I'm assuming it's probably got some music and stuff. It is still up and running. At least it was last time I checked. It's still up and running, and it's just promotion for the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan. And yeah, that gives you probably the perfect experience. You had like the one solid background, or the background that was like, I think in that one was a star field, and just over the top interfaces. And then they kind of did the same thing with like DVDs, like where they made the DVD menus just in the beginning overly complicated, and they would have like Easter eggs going around, and
yeah, that's
or you'd find an Easter egg on the menu, like where you would find like a one I remember is on The Net with Sandra Bullock. There was a pie symbol on the DVD menu that you could click, and it would take you to like a secret menu on the DVD or whatever.
The main one I know is from Terminator 2. There was a spot you had to go to, and I think it's on the second disc. But there's a spot you had to go to, and you could enter in text. Well, you need to enter in numbers for a date, the date for Judgment Day that they say in the movie, and that's how you got to the special edition of the movie. So that had all the deleted scenes put back into the movie, not just as random deleted scenes. And that's actually one thing I don't like about digital movies, is a lot of them don't have the director's cuts and the longer cuts. Some of them do, but some of them don't. Like I need to check, because after watching the Drinkers video earlier today, I'd really like to see the director's cut of Waterworld, because he was talking about that in his latest Production Hell episode. But he did point something out that, like, my mental picture of the movie confirms anyway. That movie probably won't look dated. Because of them spending so much money on practical effects, it's not digital. So it all looks real because it was real, And so it still looks good.
Even when he's like, "You're right, it does look like shit." When he's talking about his face. Speaking of that, somebody wants to send me a copy of Waterworld for the Virtual Boy. I will do a review on Waterworld for the Virtual Boy.
I remember going to watch like a midnight show of that when it first came out. I thought the movie was good. I don't know, everyone else seemed to not like it. It was a terrible bomb at the box office, apparently. At the time, it was the most expensive movie ever made, and like in adjusted dollars, it'd be like a $300 million movie today. So it'd be up there with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and probably do about the same at the box office.
But it does well enough that they still have an ongoing show. The Waterworld, the live action show that you can go to and watch.
Oh, yeah.
So they must have done something right.
Yeah.
But no, like I say, the internet, the movie, all that stuff is just, it's become so accustomed now. Like before, and the reason I believe why it was is that they wanted, one with the internet, it had its own dated look. But then when it came to like the DVDs and such, it's just like, oh, look at this new format. Look at the stuff that we can do. Look at all the neat little, bells and whistles and stuff. And now it's just commonplace. And you do get some neat things, like with Blu-rays. You do get like where you can have commentary right over top of the movie you're watching, which seems like a terrible way to watch a movie. But for those people that want to,
I think I've only watched like one or two movies with the commentary on, and I don't even remember what they were off the top of my head.
And there's some stuff like where they can get like actual like live information. Like if you have your Blu-ray player hooked up to the internet, it can stream like live or a updated, stuff to your player and all that. I think I've had some where I've actually put in a Blu-ray and it had to do like some sort of update to my player to get it to actually play the stupid thing.
Well, they keep updating the coding. for the not coating, coding with a D. For the Blu-rays, an older Blu-ray player cannot play current Blu-rays, as I understand it.
So,
Which is part of the reason why they started making them so they could all connect to the internet. Yeah, you get problems like that.
and a lot of them will have like the codec, I believe is what they call it.
Yeah.
Will be actually on the Blu-ray itself, so that if it's missing, it'll just install it and run it. Because I've had some where it's like installing this, and I was like, oh, okay.
You ever had a misprinted movie?
Like,
Where it's like the case and everything says it's one thing, but it's not.
I don't think so. I think the closest I may have had is where the sides of the DVD weren't listed, right? Like where it had the two-sided DVD and like the sides were wrong.
Yeah. Well, I've got one. It's Fight Club. It's like the 2-disc version. The disc that's supposed to have the movie on it is disc 2, in my copy, is disc 2 to Independence Day. So it's all the Independence Day special features. And I thought, at first I put it in, I thought, okay, well, this is like some subversive counter-programming thing. It's Fight Club. If you've ever seen the movie, it kind of makes sense. But then, no, it's not. So I had to buy another copy of the damn movie.
I think the closest I've had that was I bought a copy of Duke Nukem 64 and put it in my console, and it was Quarterback Club.
Well, that's a hell of a thing.
So what I ended up doing is I was like, well, this case is actually pretty good. So I found the shittiest working copy of Duke Nukem 64 on eBay, and I swapped the guts into the better looking case, and then put Quarterback Club in that one. So now, in my collection, I have a really crappy looking copy of Duke Nukem 64, which has a even crappier version of a crappy game, Quarterback Club, on it.
Yeah.
It's about the closest I've ever had. And that's a big deal, especially in the video game market now. Like, a lot of people can make pretty decent reproductions. So a lot of the eBay sellers that are selling legitimate copies will actually take a picture of the board. And there are websites that you can go to where they'll actually verify what boards are used for certain games.
Well, the only thing close to that I've dealt with, not even close to that really, it's just gaming related kind of, was I did put another game on my Super Nintendo Mini, and I did find a place to get more ROMs. So,
well, and I'm completely fine if someone puts on there that, hey, I bought a reproduction. So I in the Game Boy Micro video, I had a reproduction copy of Metroid Fusion, because it's like a, I don't know, $45, $50 game, and I wanted to buy that one in Zero Mission, and I bought them both as or reproductions in the same lot, and I think I spent 20 or $30 for the pair. So got a good deal on it. And I knew what I was getting. I would never list it, and they clearly make them like they're translucent, so they're not the right color, they're not anything. I think that's okay, because these games are out of print. But anybody that tries to pass off a fake copy as a legitimate copy, I think is kind of got words for people like that.
Yeah.
And there's some that, obviously that look like they could be legitimate, like my copy of Clock Tower for the Super Nintendo. It looks legitimate, but the thing you have to remember is it was never released in the U.S. So it is a completely fan-translated copy of Clock Tower from Japan.
Well, there you go.
Which is also a really, really good horror game for the Super Nintendo. With the Scissor Man.
The Scissor Man.
It's a tiny person, or like a short person that has giant hedge trimmers that stabs people. And it does. It gets fairly gory for a Super Nintendo game, because there's one point where he comes like crashing out of the ceiling, and he's got a girl impaled on his scissors. I could see why it probably wasn't released in the U.S., but
yeah, I could see that, since they took the blood out of Mortal Kombat.
Well, out of Mortal Kombat 1, they did bring it back for Mortal Kombat 2, because they realized that's what the ESRB rating is going to be for. Yeah, because they really went all in on gory for the Wii. There was a release of a game, and I can't think what it's called, but it was black and white. But the only thing in color was all the blood, and you would use like chainsaws and different things, and you would kill people. But it was done with the Wii remotes.
Well, that makes it all right.
Yeah. We've come to play. Anyways, I think we've rambled on enough. And
Well, actually, there was one other topic
well, what?
that I'm going to be very brief on because we're going to talk about it in like a different video. Because I forgot to mention it back several sections ago. It was the Tarantino Star Trek thing that I sent you the video about.
Yeah, and I did listen onto that one for a little bit as well, and I was, I agree with most of it because I mean, I thought the actors, because Tarantino liked the actors in the Kelvin timeline, he just didn't like the Kelvin timeline.
Right.
But the great thing about why the Kelvin timeline came along was so that they could pretty much just make their own line of movies that wouldn't interfere with any of the existing movies that were out there. That made sense, and and his idea of repurposing, original series episodes, I think it wouldn't matter if it was the Kelvin timeline, the original timeline, or any of them because they're existing episodes.
Right. And for those of you who have no idea what on earth we're talking about, I think it was a year or two ago, there were rumors that Quentin Tarantino was going to make a Star Trek movie. And he did actually talk to J.J. Abrams, and he has written a script. He's probably not going to make the movie, though, but he told him, go ahead, use a script if they want to. That's probably not going to happen by the way the things look at the moment. But, as Jim was mentioning, in some of the clips of some of the interviews, he said, you've got all the material right there. Just take one of the episodes of the show and make it into a movie, because you could easily stretch one of them out to 90 minutes. Especially the better ones. And so the one he was going to do that with was a piece of the action, which is the one where they show up on a planet that has had prior contact before the Prime Directive was a thing. And so they're coming to gauge the level of what they call contamination. And they get there, and it's 1920s Chicago, essentially, with a bunch of crime, like mafioso types, trying to control everything. And it ends with Kirk and Spock basically saying the Federation's taken over, that they're the new gang in town, and they'll give the other guys a piece of the action as long as they'll keep the peace in their stead. And at the end, you find out that Bones left his communicator behind, and they're not going back for it, but they're worried that they might be able to dismantle that and jump forward in time and, technologically. And then as Kirk put it at the end, maybe they'll be showing up demanding that, we give them a piece of the action, because they'll just kind of hybridize everything and become like a new version of the Federation, but, run by gangsters. Kind of like the Mirrorverse. And so, it's an interesting idea. And so I think once we've had some time to kind of plot some ideas out, I think we want to do a follow-up to that idea and just talk about some of the episodes that we think would lend themselves to a full-length movie if they were just going to take an episode and stretch it out. But this is getting kind of long, and we haven't really thought that out yet, so we don't want to add that here. But I did want to mention that because it's going to be another thing in the next month or two that we'll get something out on that. Because there's plenty of material there. There's several episodes that could be done with.
I think it was that he liked all of from what I gathered from that article is that he liked all the characters that were playing the original series actors, except for I don't think anybody liked Benedict Cumberbatch as.
Well, that was his problem, was because Benedict Cumberbatch wasn't playing Ricardo Montalban playing Khan. He was playing something else. But like Chris Pine's playing Shatner, Zachary Quinto's playing Leonard Nimoy, and Carl Urban's playing DeForest Kelley, and so on. So like they're playing the actors playing the original characters. Whereas Khan was just like, well, no, like Khan all of a sudden went from a Hispanic guy playing an Indian guy to a British guy playing a maybe still Indian guy. Don't know. And it just didn't make any sense, Now, I mean, you could argue that obviously in that timeline he probably had like plastic surgery and changed his appearance and everything, because if nothing else, old Admiral RoboCop would have realized that Spock is there from the other timeline and would know what Khan looked like and sounded like and be like, just in case, let's change your appearance whatever his name ended up being, Harrison or whatever, whenever he was
John
not,
Harrison.
Yeah, John Harrison, whenever he was not Khan. So, but no, the other big problem with that is the big reveal. Like, that name doesn't mean a damn thing to the people he's talking to. It means something to us, the audience, but the people he's talking to don't know who the hell Khan is, and it's played up like it's a big dramatic moment, and it's like,
Well,
okay,
the same thing with Kirk's death in that movie. It's played up as this huge dramatic moment between him and Spock, and people are like, this is only the second movie we've seen these people in. There is no original series to build up to
right.
it.
You're the movie is assuming that you're assuming that there's a time gap between the two movies, and in that time, essentially something like the original series has happened in their friends. But that's a bad mistake to make.
And even in that movie, they don't really come across as being really great friends. Like, it looks like they're still building up a relationship.
Right.
And
it's actually a similar problem to the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, because I did look it up. I've gone out and checked. The whole Sabine becoming a Jedi thing is not in Rebels. So there was like all this bullshit happens between these two characters off screen, and we're just supposed to go along with it. Like, all this character development just happened somewhere between the cartoon and Ahsoka, and we're looking at the aftermath.
So there's no weight to it. That's the problem. There's no weight to that because you don't know. You don't know how they're feeling. You don't know any of that. So
right.
That's a problem. I mean, I don't think the scene is bad, but I mean, this should have been in a later movie. There should have been a movie, because you had the first movie where they just kind of tolerated each other, and Spock's kind of like, okay, well, I kind of see where he's coming from on these things. The second one, where, I mean, obviously he cares about Spock, but you wouldn't think that he cares any more than any other crew member. And then,
well, the third movie actually has the same kind of problems. You know, because Kirk's like, oh man, they're going to make me an admiral. Like, I'm feeling so old. And it's like, you're not old, Chris Pine. You haven't been doing this for decades like Shatner had. Like, you know, like whenever Shatner's talking about being old in Star Trek 3, that's 3 movies in, plus the original series, plus we know there's a time gap in between. Like, he is old at that point. He is too old for this shit.
Well, that and the third one, the Yorktown, was a little ridiculous.
Was that the space station?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they just, because it was like in the middle of an asteroid field too. It's like you're just asking for trouble. It's like, I'm going to put a glass ball out here in the middle of that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted a giant set piece that looked cool where starships could fly through it, but
I mean, like, from what I mentioned aside, I think Star Trek 3 was decent overall. It felt more like an episode of the show with the new people than anything else. And you know, the callbacks to the Enterprise era, like the show Enterprise era, was interesting. The pre-Federation ship and everything. But again, the Enterprise gets destroyed in the other Star Trek 3, the new one. It just doesn't have the weight that it did in The Search for Spock.
I know, and if you watched our review in for the Search of Spock, that's one thing I dwell on very much, is that, the fact that Kirk almost has more concern about the death of his ship than the death of his son, even though the death of his son drives the later movies more. Yeah. Because his son dies, but then later he's quipping with the Klingon on the... which makes me wonder if there wasn't some sort of filming sequence that they...
Well, who knows? So anyway, look for us to talk about, you know, originals. Well, we'll probably go just more than the original series, because there's episodes from Next Generation and Deep Space Nine for sure, and probably Voyager. They could make full-length movies. Although I think we're going to try to focus on the original series, but we'll give some honorable mentions out there.
Yeah, the problem with Voyager is that it's just like the alien species of the day, and it doesn't translate well for most Star Trek people. Because, I mean, yeah, if you watch it, you may notice, oh yeah, that was that one episode that had this, but you're going to have the only reoccurring villains really you have is the, I mean, you do see other races, but really it's just the Borg.
Well, you had the Kazon early on, and they kept popping up, and they tried so hard to make them the new Klingons, and it's even there in the name. but like it just didn't work.
Well, the Ferengi were originally supposed to be the new Klingons at one point, and they became a joke.
And then there was the one race that popped up every once in a while that like they were all dying from some kind of plague or something, so they constantly needed like new organs and tissues and everything. I didn't remember what the hell they were called, but they popped up occasionally. And then the one group species, whatever number from fluidic space,
Yeah.
they popped up a few times. And then to your point, the end was basically Borgarama. So,
All right, I think we've.
yeah, that's probably a good note to end on there. Not going into the time travel shenanigans for how Voyager ends or anything, but yeah, so look for that. If there's any episodes you guys would like us to talk about, let us know down in the comments. But it's about that time for like, share, and subscribe and all that other fun stuff. We always appreciate all of it, especially the comments, and especially if you're going to leave a thumbs down. I know you don't have to do this, and I know you're probably not even inclined to do anything I'm going to ask you to do if you're leaving a thumbs down. But take a minute and let us know in the comments, or if you just message us directly, okay?
And again,
if you don't want to leave a comment, and I would implore you to make it constructive, but
yeah, no,
that might be asking too much. You know,
if you're just like, hey, well, Jim's a dumbass, then I understand. I mean, I agree with that comment, but
or if somehow Bill Gates' plan is actually genius and not like just Dr. Evil level stupid,
Yeah, I mean, because again, I'm fine if if you hate our content and you want to put on there, oh, it's a downvote, and here's the reason why, then cool, because then everybody else can be like, well, I see why that person doesn't like this. Let's see if they agree with you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
But yeah, anyway, other than that, like I said, like, share, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed listening to this. Hope you actually listened to it this far. We haven't settled on like a specific length for these yet. I don't think we're going to. It's probably going to vary somewhere between an hour and 2 hours, somewhere in there. I think it's what we've been hitting so far. So
it just depends on what random topics and how just wildly off topic we get with things.
How far into the multiverse of topics we get. But yeah, like I said, thank you folks for listening, and I don't know, live long and prosper. Since we talked a lot about Star Trek here at the end, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right.
See you.
See ya.